nerdy, unqualified, and indistinguishable from rambling. Welcome back to the A&D Show.
I can't believe people actually listen to this show.
Man, they are not ready for this.
My opinion's always correct, but you're allowed to be wrong.
All right. I agree. Hello, and welcome to the A&D Show. We are back after a long time. I'm David.
I'm Austin. It's been a hiatus.
It has been, as they say, a hiatus. And what has it been, Austin? Like 3 weeks?
3 or 4 weeks. I was
even a month
traveling because we didn't do it before I left, and so it's been 3 or 4 weeks. I think 4 weeks.
It's been quite a while. So I would say we apologize for our absence, but we don't.
I don't.
We don't have any strict schedule. We do this whenever we have time,
you
listen whenever you have time.
Yeah, I've been traveling, and I was on vacation, and then I was at a conference in Philadelphia, which that town is not great. Although I will say this, it was my first ever experience with Uber Eats. So I live in a small town. I don't have Uber Eats where I live. And I was packing myself my hotel on Wednesday night, and I'm kind of hungry. You know, there was like an after party I went to, and I'm kind of partied out. Like I just wanted to kind of go chill at my hotel. And I'm like, I'm really hungry. And so I pulled up Uber, and it was like, hey, here's $25 free credit for Uber Eats. And I'm like, deal. So I ordered 2 chicken sandwiches, fries, and an apple pie thing from Popeyes. Now, I'm a Christian. So I know the rules when it comes to Chick-fil-A. Like I understand the rules. We are Chick-fil-A. We ride we ride together and we die together with Chick-fil-A. The Popeyes chicken sandwich is better than Chick-fil-A's.
Wow, you heard it here, people. That is a hot take.
I ate it, and like the crispiness. I honestly I think it was the crispiness of the chicken. It was just so good. And it's hard. I've been in prayer about it. Like I feel like I betrayed my Savior.
Yeah. But it is pre-blessed chicken, and you're just spitting all over the.
I'm really wrestling in my spirit about it, but the Popeye chicken sandwich is beyond phenomenal. Like,
well, no matter how much conviction you feel over your preference for Popeyes over Chick-fil-A on the chicken sandwich side, I don't think anybody's going to hate you more than they hate me whenever I say that I recently, probably a couple of months ago, went to and got a chicken sandwich from the one, the only Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it was better than Chick-fil-A.
And I love Chick-fil-A. I do. I really, really, really do. It's not like I'm anti Chick-fil-A. Like I think, I mean, if there's one, I'm gonna go. Like I'm gonna hit Chick-fil-A. But man, that sandwich was good. Like that sandwich was just, oh my gosh, like it was just. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching Transformers, eating a chicken sandwich like it's like it's 2005 all over again. It's fantastic. Like it was a great night. Like it was a great night. Just so good.
That sounds like a great. So, backstory time. When my wife and I were dating, we were dating during COVID, so no restaurants were open. So I couldn't take her out to a restaurant. They were only available for like pre-order and pickup. And so our go-to date night, and I hope this resonates with our fans, but if it doesn't, I don't really care. But our go-to date night was Chipotle, and then we would go and we'd drive through, or we'd order a Chipotle, we'd pick it up, and then we would go park in front of a church because our relationship was sanctified, and we'd sit there and we'd watch Psych on one of our phones while we had our dinner, and then we'd sit there and hang out and talk and watch Psych, and it was great. And we still do that to this day. Every time we go on a road trip, if we stop somewhere to eat, we always put Psych on because it's just our thing. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, well, that's not what we're here to talk about today. I need to I need to confess something to you
You do.
and our,
No,
our
you do.
viewers, listeners. My wife and I recently undertook the incredibly laborious task of watching, nay, binging the entirety of the Twilight Saga, and I need to vent about it because
It's so good.
it's just so bad. It's listen, it, I really just can't emphasize just how bad it really is.
No, you can't. You really can't. I mean, like you can say it's not good. Like it's just it's a bad movie. It's like it's worse than bad. Like it's worse than bad.
Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing. If anybody, which I don't know how often we talk about this, we talk about movies and syndication and television and streaming and all that kind of stuff on here all the time. But one of the things that you have to know about streaming platforms, regardless of the platform, Netflix, Prime, Disney, Paramount, HBO, whatever, is that those distribution companies, they have to buy the rights to stream whatever content they put on their platform. That's why you see content switch platform to platform. Sometimes they'll only have a partial streaming license for content. Like I think Netflix has, they only have the streaming license for the first 4 seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine right now for some strange reason. So it's a very expensive, but potentially lucrative,
Right.
kind of process. And so when you find something on there, or if it's on multiple platforms or whatever, you know that those companies spent a fair amount of money for the rights to stream that to their subscribers. What's interesting is when you find something that's not on any streaming platform, and it begs the question why. And when we went and set ourselves up with this task of watching Twilight, we wanted to know where we could stream it at. And we found that we couldn't stream it anywhere. And the question that begs the answer is why. And I think the reason is because nobody wants to watch this bullcrap. And so why would they waste their money on streaming rights for movies that people don't want to watch? Excuse me. Pardon me, my rant. But I digress. Let me get into the whole problem that I have with this franchise. There's a lot, so buckle up.
So many,
so many issues. First of all, the first movie was just a mess. Okay, and this is not intended to be any kind of degradation or disrespect toward the production company or toward the cast, because, and for all intents and purposes, the entirety of the cast, no matter how badly they did on this movie, they're all great actors. Mm-hmm. Kristen Stewart is the one I think that probably takes the most flack in this film or in this franchise because of her very stilted and awkward and just uncomfortable to watch creation of this character. But for all intents and purposes, she is a great actress. She does have some good work in her repertoire, and I think that's worth noting. What's his name? Robert Pattinson, same thing. I mean, if you haven't seen Robert Pattinson in his latest outing as the Batman, that movie is an absolute banger.
Tenet's phenomenal.
So good. Oh, Tenet, yeah, Tenet is phenomenal, and he's been in so many great films since then. He was even in Harry Potter, and though he was only a very small character in one of the 8 movies, that's still much better than what he did in the Twilight franchise. Even Taylor Lautner, his career hasn't been quite as lucrative, but he was fantastic in Ridiculous 6. I mean, he was the most ridiculous character that you could have imagined.
Yes.
And it was very out of left field for somebody like him to do this kind of character, but he did a great job. So this is not intended to be an expose on how crappy every actor, on how crappy every person who produced the film, and that's not what this is. So don't take it that way. But I will say that first movie was a mess. It didn't seem like anybody knew what they were doing with this IP. I don't know is it Stephanie Meyer? Is she the writer? I think.
Yes, that sounds. Yeah.
So it's like Stephanie Meyer didn't even really know what was going on at the time, and it was just a hot mess. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of cringe in that first movie. Like, it easily earns a 9 out of 10 cringes, if not a 10 out of 10, because it's just so unbearable to watch. In fact, I we were watching it, my wife and I were watching it, and I was just like, so many times while we were watching it, I'm like, why am I still sitting here? This is so bad.
It's the car wreck paradox that you just turn your head and you stare at the accident.
Yeah.
You can't look away, and that's what I found. Like when I watched it years ago. A friend and I basically dubbed the entire movie ourselves, which was more entertaining than the movie itself. But for me, it's just like I get that you're marketing towards, teenage girls. I get it. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that the movie has to be just dribble. The entire thing is just like this. My favorite scene of the entire series is the baseball scene.
Oh gosh.
And there's a guy on I found a video on Instagram or whatever. This guy had recreated it just him.
You did show me that.
It's hysterical.
It is.
And it's so spot on, and it's like the motions and the you're going back and forth, and like the Krista Stewart pulling her hair. It's just so spot on. And it's like, but then I sit there and I'm like, there was a director in a chair that was in charge of all this stuff and said, hey, do this. Okay. Do this, and get ready like this, and it's like somebody sat there and said, that'd be a great thing to do. It's a good idea. Let's do that.
Right.
And I get it. They're vampires, and they're they're not used to normal society. And you can play that card if you want to, but it's just so bad.
Yeah.
She cuts herself in class or whatever, and the Edward's like, oh, and it's like,
I think
dumb. It's so dumb.
Let me just dial in on I think my top, I don't know, 3 or 4 favorite cringy moments of this film. The first one is when she walks into the classroom and she stands in front of the fan and Edward is just like this close. The way that Robert kind of acted wasn't as though he was pardon the expression, but he was thirsty for her blood, so much, right, so to speak, as much as he was repulsed by her.
Yeah.
And so it's she walks in the classroom, first day on campus, walks in front of the fan, and then it cuts to a reaction shot of Edward, and he's just like, ooh. That's that's the closest thing I can imagine. It was he was so close to gagging and throwing up that he was like, oh, and that one killed me. I was like, what in the actual heck is happening? And then the second one, and this was probably the first moment, because I had seen the first movie and perhaps even the second movie before. I don't think I got through the second one completely, and I don't remember much of the first one beyond our most recent watching of it. But I do remember this because I think this was the moment that I was like, okay, this is a waste of time. It's the moment when he finally exposes himself to her and you see his sparkly skin in the sunlight. And I'm just like, they just ruined the best part about being a vampire, or at least the coolest part of the lore of vampirism, which is that these are people and creatures or whatever that cannot survive in sunlight, and sunlight eviscerates them.
Can you imagine in Blade or Bram Stoker's Dracula that come out in their sparkly skin? That'd be awesome.
That'd be so dumb. I freaking hated it so much. But that was the moment, or that was at least one of the moments that ruined the movies for me.
I like whenever she rides the tree. It's so good. It's hang on, spider monkey. It's
okay.
What are you doing?
That's number 3. When he throws her on his back, and he's like, hang on, spider monkey. And the funniest thing is that when we were watching that, my wife burst into tears laughing so hard. And since we have finished the series, I think she's probably added that statement, that phrase, to her just general like conversation because it's just so bad. Oh gosh.
I like the what are you? It's like, I want you to say it. She's like, vampire. It's just so dumb.
Okay.
And I mean, and the thing is, David, this franchise made what, like $1 billion?
Yeah, it was extremely lucrative.
Like, so people paid money to go see this, and I can't get a fourth Shia LaBeouf Transformers movie. Like, what in the world? Like, what kind of world are we living in?
Not a good one. I can tell you that much. The thing is, and I talked with Allison about this as well. I was like, when we finished the last movie last night, or is it Thursday? Yeah, we finished it last night. We came home after church, and I was like, okay, I don't want to go another day with this whole being held over my head. I was like, we need to finish this and get it done. So we watched the last one last night, and
there's 5 movies. I thought there were 3. There's 5.
Yeah. So we started
$3.3 billion is what that franchise made. $3.3 billion worldwide.
Ugh.
Insane.
Ugh. Yeah. So anyway, we finished the last one last night, and I leaned over to Allison and I was like, look, the thing that I think is the most heartbreaking about this is less to do with the trajectory of the careers of the actors and actresses in these films, because they were severely hindered by this. Like Taylor Lautner has never recovered from this.
Right.
Robert Pattinson has since recovered, but it took a long time. And even Kristen Stewart, she's done a lot of work since then, and some of it's been pretty big, but she just couldn't escape that just like wimpy, mamsy-pamsy, like awkward girl until just recently. I think one of the films that I like most from her is her Underwater that she did, which was awesome. Super fun creature feature. Really, really cool. But anyway, I leaned over to her and I was like, it's not, I think the saddest part isn't the trajectories of the actors and actresses and how they suffered from this. I think the saddest part is that they've finished this franchise, and this franchise is garbage, but they couldn't, for the life of them, find a way to finish the Divergent series, and it was actually pretty good.
Right.
I mean, it had its weak points and its cringe moments, but for the most part, it was a much better story, and they couldn't finish that one. And I'm just like,
I think when you talk about the cast, and I think about how many like home run hitters were in these. I mean, just the first 2. You had Anna Kendrick in these movies. She's a huge star.
Yeah, and she was in all of them.
Yeah, you had Jamie Campbell Bower, who didn't really do a whole lot of anything. He did some stuff, but then he gets the part of Vecna in Stranger Things season 4.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's been like, he's in the final season as well. But that was his first, and then he got got several big roles after that. But it took him a long time to kind of get back in the center of stuff.
After and the thing is, he had a small role. He was part of the Volturi, like Grand Inquisitor, like government or whatever of the vampires in this franchise. And he was a very small role. And I don't think he had more than a single line until the very last movie. And he had maybe 1 paragraph of dialogue, which is fine. And I recognized his face, but I was just like, where have I seen him from? And it didn't even occur to me until just now that he was Vecna in Stranger Things. And I think back on Stranger Things and I think about just how incredibly well crafted and well played that character was in comparison to literally any character in Twilight. And I'm just
I also forgot that Sarah Clark from 24 was in those movies. She was in like the last 2. It was Renee Dwyer. I'm kind of just going through the cast here because like I've not seen it in so long that I remember. But I mean, there are a ton of actors and actresses in this movie.
Did you know, you'll appreciate this, that Bryce Dallas Howard made an appearance?
Yes, she did. And she was terrible. I remember that one.
Genuinely, and here's the thing. I love BDH. I think she's awesome. And I know that you're not a fan of her, but that's neither here nor there. But
No,
I will say
she's fine. David, my feelings on Jurassic Park. I don't think they're good movies. I think they're kind of boring for me, kind of like Lord of the Rings. Others love them. I think they're boring, and so that skews my vision of her. But I think that I've seen her in other stuff that she's really, really good in. I just I don't enjoy Jurassic Park.
Yeah, again, and I guess those are some of her more mainline IPs she's been a part of. But yeah, I love BDH. I think she's awesome. And but this was genuinely bad. And I think it's not really as much a discredit to her. I know this was early in her career, and she was, I don't know, I don't want to say a no name, because you can't be a no name and be Ron Howard's daughter,
Yeah.
But I will say that she was she was part of the cast, but she was part of the recast cast.
Yeah. I always love the man. It's amazing how she made it. It's incredible. It's like, oh
yeah.
The I always find the actors and actresses that have like the family ties are always like, yes, I worked really hard and I got my first big break. It's like, did you though? You're Ron Howard's daughter.
What's his name?
There was an actress that came out, or somebody came out like a few months ago talking about like it was her first big break, like directing a movie, but it was a movie for like their director father's own company.
Oh,
and it's like who was that?
Is Shauna Shyamalan or whatever her name is?
Yeah. The
movie,
daughter.
Yeah, the movie, The Watchers, and it's apparently very, very good. I'm actually pretty excited to watch it. But it's apparently very, very good, and it's her directorial debut.
Yeah, but
everybody's like praising her and all this other stuff. But like, of course she's gonna, because she's M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, of course.
I've always like people rail about nepotism. I don't really care about nepotism. I mean, if you're, if my parents were billionaires and I got some bigwig job, good for me, and that's awesome. I'm happy about it.
Right.
I don't care about nepotism, but I always laugh at the people that have that nepotism. They're always like, I just really worked really hard to get here, and it's like maybe it did, but I mean, it probably wasn't near as hard as it was for everybody else to get to the directorial chair for the first time. Well, I don't imagine.
Another really good example of that is Willow Smith.
Oh yeah,
Will Smith's daughter. She is in this phase of her music career, which I think we can probably all agree was only as successful as it's ever been because of who Will Smith is.
Well, yeah.
But she's at this phase of her career where she's like trying to cut ties with her parents, and she's like, I don't want their support, and I don't want anything. I want to make this on my own. And I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't matter.
I will take Will and Jade as financial support if she doesn't want it. Like, that's fine.
Right.
Like,
I'll take it. Anyway, back to Twilight. So yeah, the first film is just, and here's another thing that made me so mad about this first film. It wasn't just that it was cringy. It wasn't just the stilted, awkward, uncomfortable Bella Swan and the super creepy, like very, very, very creepy Edward that we see in that movie. Like, it wasn't just that. It was the whole production seemed plagued to just be a hot mess. We were watching it, and a good director of photography and cinematographers and everything, camera operators, if they're quality, and I guess more the director of photography more than anybody else, because they're the ones that call the shots on camera angles and movements and motions and pushes and pulls and dolly shots, etc. A good DP is going to make it so that the camera work helps you feel engrossed in the movie. And they're not going to try and throw out all kinds of crazy, wacky camera motions that pull you out of the movie and be like, wait a minute, why are they doing this? Right. And so in that first movie, and I will say, it got significantly better. And it might have been because maybe the budget wasn't high enough that they could hire somebody that could do better camera work until they got through that first movie and made some money back on it. But the first movie, they're like doing these crazy Dutch angle, like pushes and pulls and handheld camera and shaky. And I'm just like, the whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching this on somebody's phone and they can't quite hold their hand still.
Yes.
And it was just jarring.
Like every fight video ever.
What? Yeah.
It's like every fight video.
Right. And it just, I'm like, what amateur hour is this? And I'm not a professional. I don't want anybody to think that I'm coming at this from a perspective of somebody who knows what to do. All I know is what I see And when I watch a movie that the camera angles, the choices of lenses, the choices of cuts, when all those things stand out to me, somebody's doing something wrong because they're not supposed to.
But I think what bothers me is that like it never got better. Like every movie was plagued with the same problems, in my opinion.
So, okay, to a certain degree, yes. The entire production from start to finish, 1 all the way to the end of 5, was plagued with the same just awkward, uncomfortable characters and just not great storytelling decisions. But I will say that the camera work and the overall the overall cut and camera work and everything it improved incrementally over time, at least up until the last movie. And I'll skip forward to that point. But before I do, I want to say one more thing. The last thing, not the last thing, but one of the last things that triggered me about this film was just the lore of the vampire, of the werewolves. Now, this doesn't come into play, really. They kind of allude to it a little bit in the first one, so it wasn't quite as much of a trigger in the first movie. But whenever they really expose this kind of lore and they kind of dive into it, I'm just like, what have they done to one of probably the coolest, like, crypto crazy animal creature things of film history? The werewolf is, in my opinion, one of the coolest. It's like you take Jekyll and Hyde and you make him literally an animal, not just animalistic. And I think that is so cool. And it's been done so many times so well. American Werewolf in London, American Werewolf in Paris, the entirety of the Underworld series, those transitions of their monsters were incredible. It's been done so well by so many people that when somebody tries to do something new, and I have to give Stephenie Meyer credit because she really tried to do something interesting with it, and it just didn't work. It's not necessarily her fault for trying. It's just, in the end, it just didn't. It was real awkward. And basically the gist of it, that you kind of get, you start it in the first movie and you kind of get the general gist of it throughout the series, is that werewolves are not like vampires in that they cannot create other werewolves, and that they themselves are only turned into werewolves when they are near vampires because they are mortal enemies, right? I know you're falling asleep because it's boring. It's true. So the probably the coolest character in all of Universal monster movie history has basically been relegated to a sneeze allergic reaction because you get too close to a cat.
It's dumb.
Yeah. And it's the way that I will say there are way worse things that they do in these movies, but they just really didn't do well by the Lycan lore, if I can put it that way. Now, let's skip ahead because the schlock starts in episode 1 and it really comes to, or episode 1, movie 1, and it comes to a head in movie 5. And now there's heavy spoilers here. So if you haven't watched these movies and you really want to watch these movies, don't
spoil away.
So I'm gonna spoil the heck out of them. But there were a couple of things that I'd heard. Before I watched the movies, there was a couple of things that I'd heard that came very much true, much to my chagrin. And the first of those that was so bad is the just unbelievable and unnecessary CG face replacement of the daughter of Edward and Bella. I'm just gonna pause here because I really want this to sink in. You are dealing with two fictitious characters in a fictitious world doing fictitious things, and somehow they get married. Somehow they boink on their wedding night or whatever, and they somehow never mind about the passing of time because it's like they leave the wedding in a car, and the next thing you know, they're on a boat in the exact same clothes halfway around the world in Rio or something. Anyway, they go to an island, they get the freak on, she gets instantly pregnant and instantly feels it, and you're like, okay. Anybody who's ever had a child or ever gotten pregnant knows that's not how it works.
You get sick first. Like,
yeah,
oh, no.
You get sick first for a while before you even realize what's going on sometimes. But no, she's like, oh, I think something moved inside of me, and I'm just like, gag me. Anyway, they kind of lean into it for a little while. They don't really explain it, and then it comes out that basically there is a fetus growing inside of her that is somehow half human, half vampire, and it grows at like a crazy exponential rate or whatever. And it's like, anyway, basically when fast forward, she comes to the delivery point, and it kind of got a bit gruesome at the end of that Breaking Dawn Part 1. I don't know if you've ever seen that one or not, but essentially she's like, the baby is like taking everything nutrient-wise from her, and she's having to drink human blood as a human, not as a vampire, to satiate and give the baby what the baby needs so that she can survive long enough to give birth to it. And she drops her cup once.
So stupid.
She drops her cup of blood and she goes, oh, and she leans like this, and then her back breaks and she crumples on top of herself into a mass of like emaciated bones and flesh. It was pretty gruesome. I'm not going to lie. Of all the things that they showed, that was... You okay? Oh, well, anyway, of all the things that they showed, of all the violence, of all the graphic fighting and gore and all this other stuff, that was the one thing that was the most triggering. Was we watched them snapping heads off and crushing head, which it was not gory and bloody. It was like they literally like popped the head off like you would if it was you're pulling the head off of a Barbie doll,
right?
Which was super dumb. But anyway, we watched that the whole time, and then we get to the scene where she like crumples under her own weight and her bones are breaking, and it was like gross. It was super triggering, super uncomfortable, as if Bella didn't make you uncomfortable enough as it is. Anyway, fast forward, she ends up dying in childbirth. The baby survives, and then they inject her with vampire venom or something, and over time, throughout the end of that movie and the start of this Part 2, she ends up becoming a vampire and gets what she always wanted because she's a weird, freaky necro girl or whatever. Anyway, but then the crux of the whole thing, like the whole point of the story from day one, you find out, is all about this baby. And the first scene of the last movie, she walks in and freaking one of the other vampire women is holding her baby, and the baby's face has been completely and hideously CG replaced. And it is the most jarring and uncomfortable and just like Uncanny Valley on fire. It was so bad. And the problem is, it wasn't the only scene. They leaned into that CG effect so freaking hard. And they did it for the infant baby, and they did it for the toddler baby, and they did it for like the little 2 or 3 year old girl, and they did it for the 6 or 7 year old girl, and they did it so much further and so much longer than they ever needed to. And it wasn't until like right before the final act of the film that they decided, okay, we're going to just give up on that now. And just for no reason, it's like a normal child's face at that point. And then the final battle ensues. And this was the other part that I was mentioning that just I'd heard about and I'd never watched it. And it was one of the reasons I heard about it. And it was one of the reasons why I never went and actually watched it, besides the fact that I just couldn't bear the first film. The final battle ensues. And I knew what was happening. I knew this when we watched it, and Allison didn't know. We were watching it happen, and all of a sudden it just escalates into this big climactic battle, and all these werewolves and vampires are battling these other vampires, and they're popping each other's heads off and ripping arms off, and one of the werewolves gets in a big bear hug with a vampire and gets crushed to death, and then there's this big crack in the ground and opens up and everybody dies, and then the main bad guy, the main baddie, gets his head popped off, and then gets burned, and then he wakes up and realizes that he was seeing his own future, not actually, that none of it actually happened.
Yep.
And if that was not a slap in the face to every single viewer who had the balls to stick it out through all 5 films, like, what an unbearable end of a genuinely garbage franchise.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, and to be fair, that that is not the first movie to pull the it was a dream scenario. No. I mean, Mario Brothers 2 pulled that card. Oh, it was a dream, whatever. It's stupid. It's a stupid play.
Yeah. I've only ever seen one movie where I actually liked it, and it's going to be controversial, I'm sure, but it was with Nick Cage. It was called Next. Nick Cage and Jessica Biel. And basically, Nick Cage in that movie has the ability to see into the future, but he only has the ability to see in the future like 2 minutes or something. And he has this vision of this woman walking into this bar, and he doesn't understand what it's all about. So he goes to that bar every single day, waiting to see if she's going to walk in. And she never does until finally she eventually does. And the whole movie is all about him, like, essentially trying to get into her pants. And then once they finally hook up, he realizes that he can see further into the future with her than he could by himself. Something about her is like a catalyst for his powers to amplify. And so the whole movie plays out. Like, they wake up in bed together, and the whole movie plays out afterwards. And he ends up showing that they stay together and blah, blah, blah. And in the end, a big bomb explodes and kills them both.
Yes.
And then he wakes up in bed next to her, and he actually none of it had happened yet. He had just seen it happen and realized that the only way for them to be together and to survive was for him to leave her behind and find her after it was all done. So then he goes off and does everything and comes back and finds her at the end of the movie. And that was still it was a cool idea at the time, but it's such lazy writing.
It is 100%.
Yeah. So I will say I'm also a writer from time to time, and I'm currently writing a series of children's stories. And I ashamedly have used that trope in those stories, but there's just goofy little kid stories. It's not like I'm trying to sell a multi-million-dollar movie or anything, so I don't feel too bad about it.
I mean, the entire franchise, even the books it's bad writing. I know that they sold 1 million copies, whatever. It doesn't make good. A lot of books sell a lot of copies. Like every self-help book, like this come out, it's like, oh, it's like girl, put on your makeup, and it's like, this book is probably awful. Because but not to be fair, I hate motivation or whatever. Like the people that put the quotes on social media, that's disgusting. I can't stand it.
Live, laugh, love.
Yeah, I'm just like the guy with the skulls and crossbones, and like the skeleton. It's like you wouldn't like me when I'm angry, whatever. Like the Hulk or whatever. I'm just like, this is dumb. This is dumb.
Yeah,
and
that's the whole franchise.
It is, but good selling a lot of copies does not make good writing or good material. Now again, $3.3 billion.
Yeah.
So you can't argue with that. You can't argue that it was successful. It was an immensely successful franchise. What boggles my mind is that there are other, I believe, movies that could make just as much, if not more, given the chance, to be put into a franchise like that. And I just think that to see, I don't know. I guess I can't really criticize it too much because it made a ton of money. So, how can you sit there and say that it was terrible? I mean, it was hard to watch. It wasn't enjoyable. But there were people that loved the tar out of them, and I just don't.
Here's a question.
It's a very weird taste to me to be like, these are fantastic. Like that's a weird like to sit there and be like that's like my favorite movie would just like blow my mind. Like,
those are not the kind of people I want to be friends with.
No.
Here's a question. I think I don't know if this has been asked before. It might have been. It probably has been. It's been so long. But first of all, let me just say this. Frame of reference for the time that this first movie was made, this came out the same year that both Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk came out. And it still was bankable.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, here's a question. I don't know that we haven't talked about this. We haven't asked this question, and I don't know if anybody else has, but they might have. Do you think quickly look up and see when True Blood started?
It was after that.
Was it after? The movie was after, or the show was after?
The show was after, because that was 2008.
So when did True Blood start?
2008.
Well, that was when the movie started too.
Okay.
So they started the same year?
Yeah. Twilight came out a month after. But to be fair, Twilight had a lot of book success before this. So
Yeah.
Twilight, the first one came out November 11th of 2008, and True Blood came out in September 7th of 2008. And so, True Blood, for what I've never seen it. Okay. Because wasn't it like an HBO thing?
It was, yeah.
And I have a lot of qualms with most of HBO's shows. I tried to watch some of them. I tried doing Sopranos because everyone was like, Sopranos is so good. I hated it. That was boring.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of the HBO stuff is pretty vulgar, a lot of nudity. And I've never seen it, but I know that from I've seen like clips online, and it feels more true vampire-esque than Twilight does.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I haven't seen the show in its entirety. I am not interested in seeing the show in its entirety. But to understand the hype around it, because it was a much loved show when it was out. It was just, everybody was talking about it and everybody thought it was amazing. In order to kind of get an understanding of why, I did watch the first 4 or 5 episodes just to kind of get a scope of what the show was about. And much to my chagrin, you're absolutely correct. It was a filthy, filthy show. But what I do recognize and I see is some striking similarities in the main 2 characters that are on screen in the first several episodes. I don't know if they're the main characters for the rest of the show because I didn't watch the rest of it, and I'm not interested in it. But what I did notice is there is a very awkward, prissy white girl who is just, for some unknown reason, infatuated with some very dusky, pale and awkward loner of a vampire. And she's not afraid of him because she thinks she knows better. And there's just all kinds of similarities like that. And I'm just like, this feels very similar in a way that I don't think I like. So I don't know if the 2 influenced each other in any way, but it was basically like
that.
Yes, and she was absolutely horrible in that show.
Yeah.
What I saw of it, at least. I'm sure she might have got better, but oh god, it was just.
What was she in? Like when I was younger, she was an X. Was she an X-Men at one point?
Yeah, she was Rogue.
That's right.
An X-Men. Yeah, but she
she's a terrible rogue, by the way.
Oh yeah,
rogue.
Well, yeah, she's very flat, non-dimensional character.
Yeah.
And that was the way she played everything in True Blood, at least what I saw of it. And that's the way that Bella Swan was played by Kristen Stewart. And yeah, anyway, I just noticed some similarities. It was like it was kind of like VidAngel before VidAngel. It's like want to watch True Blood, but you really don't want to deal with the graphic violence, the gore, the sex, the nudity, the language. Well, here's Twilight. It's basically the same thing.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
VidAngel.
It was
beautiful.
It was a great idea, VidAngel. I kind of wish that it was still what it was. Basically, you could just apply this app to your streaming platform and filter whatever you wanted. I wish it was still that way. But anyway, I digress. I wanted to build out this conversation because we did it. We made it. We survived. We watched all 5 movies.
Barely.
Oh, I have to say. So, okay, this is going to be funny. This is one of my least favorite moments of the entire series. When in the second movie, Edward leaves Bella behind, and she just cannot function. and she's straight up like screams herself to sleep in bed every single night in the movie. It's the most like awkward, and I'm just watching. I'm like, bro, her dad's name is Charlie. I'm like, bro, Charlie, she needs to be institutionalized. Like, this is not healthy. This is not normal. It's like she's going through withdrawals from some super hard drug or something like that. I'm just watching it and I'm just like, ugh. And the only thing that I resonated with was how she was feeling, was how the entire franchise made me feel. I just wanted to curl up and die the entire time. And I told my wife, she told me, she's like, I wanted to watch these movies with you specifically because I know how much you love movies, and I know that it'll be fun to watch you react to these movies. Very masochistic idea there. Just throwing that out there.
Love it.
If she's listening to this podcast, which she's probably hearing it now from the other room, she's watching something. She's got the door shut, but if she's watching this, that was a torturous thing to do. But that's the truth. We talk about movies and shows on this podcast all the time. We give reviews. We give honest reviews. We give controversial reviews. And I think the one thing that we can both agree on is that we love the art of storytelling via movie and television. I think it's super fun. It's such an underutilized tool in mainstream Christianity, because I think Christian films are just historically super bad. There's been a few that have come out recently that have promise I haven't had a chance to screen yet, and I'm excited about those. But I've told my father-in-law, who's our pastor, I've told him many times that, I wish that some of these more like theologically strong organizations would spend a little bit of money to make entertainment that is Christian based, but that isn't just a retelling of the Bible. Like, you can like Lord of the Rings, say what you want about it, is a incredibly well-crafted story, fantasy, magical, whimsical story, well-crafted, but based in Christian themes, right? C.S. Lewis with his Narnia series, and the films that were generated from that were also in that same vein, though they were a lot more thinly veiled in their Christian themes, which I didn't dislike. But I do like that, like, there were, if not still are, I would hope that there still are, but there at least were at some point in time, Christian authors that were writing stories that were not God's Not Dead. And then there's no disrespect to that movie because it made a lot of money and it's a good story, it's a good message, but that's not the kind of cinema, that's not the kind of entertainment that personally that I'm interested in watching over and over.
Right.
So anyway, yeah. So as a movie lover, this was a painful experience, but I did it. I got through it. I survived, and I did it for you, for every one of you watching and listening, because I know how much you'll enjoy the pain that I suffered through.
You can save yourself 5 movies and listen to this.
Yeah.
And just know that it's bad and it's not worth watching.
Yeah. Yeah. Because all the rumors are true.
Yeah. Don't do it. Just put down the remote, find something else to watch, close your eyes. Scroll. I don't care. Don't watch Twilight.
Here, let me give you a couple of recommendations for young adult novel movie adaptations that are worth watching. I've mentioned this already, but the Divergent series is in that realm, and unfortunately, it was never finished. But even though it was never completed and the final story was never put to film, the films that are out there are really good. They are quite solid, well made, well acted, intriguing, and even though it never quite comes to a head, it does leave you feeling like, okay, I'm satisfied with where this ended. I can be okay with this. Another one that is far superior to either Divergent or Twilight is the Hunger Games trilogy or quadrilogy. Now, I guess quintilogy if you include the prequel. That franchise, the original ones with Jennifer Lawrence, those movies are absolutely phenomenal. When it comes to intriguing story based on a young adult novel series, I don't think you can do much better than that, with one exception. There is one young adult novel series that came out that was adapted to film that is, by and large, my favorite series when it comes to that kind of genre, and that is the Maze Runner series. The Maze Runner movies are amazing, so good, and they craft those characters incredibly well. They actually surprisingly do a fair job of holding tightly to the source material, which I appreciate because the books were phenomenal. But those 3 films, 1 film per book of the original main trilogy, and they craft the characters in a way that makes you care about them. They tell the story in a way that's visually striking and incredible to watch. And that was a series I was concerned. I was really watching it, and I was really concerned that they weren't going to finish it because during the opening scene of like the final movie, the main actor, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, the guy that plays Thomas, gets in an accident doing one of the stunts, and they had to shut down production for like a year because he almost broke his neck and he was like in the hospital for like a year. But when it comes down to it, if you're looking for a good recommendation of young adult novels that have been adapted for film and successfully done so, those are 3 recommendations: the Divergent series, the Hunger Games series, and the Maze Runner series, because they are worth watching. This one is not. This is just garbage, and it's not that I have a problem. This is what's crazy. I told my wife this last night. The overall story of the bridging the gap and the divide between these 2 clans of people, one werewolf and one vampire, that's an awesome idea. And ultimately, they don't necessarily execute it the worst. The problem of the whole franchise is that everything is pinned around this really unlikable and stupid, ridiculous character named Bella Swan.
Yes.
And it just it makes me want to die inside because it could have been so good if that character hadn't been written so poorly. So anyway, that's my lowdown. That's my debrief. So thoughts, Austin?
I mean, I feel the first 3. I didn't finish the movie series.
Well, you're not missing.
It was terrible. I didn't enjoy it. What I saw was just boring. Just boring. It wasn't fun to watch.
Yep.
And I tried because I'm like, it's supposed to be really good. It was terrible.
Yeah. Whoever told you it was supposed to be really good lied to you.
Yeah. Don't waste your time.
Yeah. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time. Take our recommendations by not watching it and by watching something else instead.
Yes. 100%.
This is potentially the first entry into what I would like to call a series called Movies That Have No Right Being This Bad. So if any of our viewers, watchers, listeners, if you want us to do more like this, feel free to let us know in the comments wherever you're watching or listening, because we do monitor those and we will respond, and we might potentially torture ourselves some more to watch some more horribly awry movies to explain why you shouldn't watch them, save you the trouble. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Typically we end by talking about what we're excited about, but I'm in such a bad mood from watching Twilight. I don't want to talk about anything else. I just want to go to bed.
I don't blame you.
So I think we're going to end for now here. And one more time, just plead with you.
Don't
if
do
you
it.
ever
Don't do it.
If you've ever thought, I should probably watch those, you shouldn't.
No,
Don't.
not even a little bit. Nope.
Not even close.
No, it's not.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to turn on this outro music because that's the way we do things around here. We turn the volume down.
Here.
Okay, well, this has been therapeutic.
I'm here to help you, David. I'm here to help you.
Thank you, Austin.
I know how you texted me the other day. I know how hard this was for you, and I'm proud of you. You came out on the other end. Okay, you did it.
Yeah. I'm still mad at myself for doing it. And listen, because they're not streaming anywhere, we had to pay to rent every one of these movies.
David.
And it was $18.
There's a thing called the internet that you can just find free stuff if you know where to look.
And I probably should have.
Why don't you just call me?
I'll give you a call next time that I want to watch something that I want to pay for.
Please do.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And, we probably won't be back next week. We were very busy, very, very busy men in our lives. But we might be back the week after that. So stay
It's
tuned.
summertime. No guarantees.
Yeah. Things get a little wonky in the summertime. But hey, you know what? Take what you can get when you can get it. Am I right?
Enjoy it. Enjoy it while you got it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
For shizzle.